Welcome to the Talking Shop podcast, where I'm here to share lessons and experiences in sports performance and professional development. This episode, I'm joined by Kevin Wiseman. How are you doing today?
Hey, what's going on, man? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining. And how we know each other. I was at a meet in Dallas to go watch Adam, and then he just introduced us, and then I saw you in the weight room, and we just became better friends. Kevin has an interesting story himself, just with your background in the Marines, Olympic weightlifting around the world, and now you're pursuing an engineering degree, which has its own challenges in and of itself, which I've enjoyed kind of just hearing all the behind the scenes stuff. So for those who are not familiar, can you please share a little bit about your background?
Yeah. So, my name is Kevin. I'm a mechanical engineering student. I'm entering my junior year in the fall at TCU, which is where I met you, obviously. I'm actually not from here. I grew up in North Jersey. I'm like a little mountain town up in North Jersey. And I played, pretty much sports my whole entire life growing up. Any sport you could pretty much play. I was one of those kids, but I wasn't like a Letterman kind of guy, I was a really good athlete. Like overall, if I could play any sport, I could pick up any sport, but I wasn't like, getting full scholarships, to universities like, some of the kids at my school. And so I think it kind of came down to like me not having, at the time, like I didn't have the drive. I was pretty small kid. Like I was entering my junior year, leaving my junior year of high school. I was like 140 pounds and was like 5'4". So I was like super small as a junior. So I played football and baseball through high school. But if you could imagine, like, me being 140 pounds in the hole behind the defensive lineman, I wasn't really hitting anyone coming up the middle, mostly because the kids that I was playing against were like 180 pounds. So I didn't really get a lot of playing time, honestly, which was fair. And then I grew. I ended up being about like almost 6 foot by the time senior year started. I grew like 6 to 8 inches over the summer, and then I ended up being like 200 pounds by the time senior year rolled around. So I was like an extremely late bloomer, and because of that, I feel like I almost like kind of missed out. Not any excuses here, but I feel like I kind of like missed out. Like I of course look back and say I wish I went through puberty when I was like 14, like some of the other kids. But no, because of that, I ended up actually quitting football my senior year, just because I wasn't getting playing time. And I thought because I grew over the summer that I would get playing time, but realistically, I still wasn't that great at football. So I ended up quitting football. I got myself in trouble on school grounds my senior year of high school. And I'm not going to get into that, but I ended up suspended from school for a little bit. And I kind of had to like sit down and tell myself, I have to like figure out what I'm going to do with my life, because like I was never a bad student, but I definitely wasn't like a, straight A student through high school. And I kind of like took a look at myself and said, I never dedicated like my effort to anything. I did a lot. I hung out with a lot of friends that did a bunch of sports, and, I did after school activities, but I never actually like dedicated anything to like one specific sport or area or anything like that. So I ended up deciding, to join the Marine Corps. And that was probably like the first time in my life that I made like a command decision and told myself, like, I'm going to be like all in on this. Like I'm going to, train my whole, I enlisted December of my senior year of high school, and I left for boot camp September after I graduated. So I had almost about like a year to kind of get myself ready to go. And I was like super gung ho. I was like, motivated, and I ended up like training all summer. And that's like kind of where I began like weight training for the first time. And I guess like pushing myself to the limit, because I was like, I don't want to go to boot camp and, be embarrassed, kind of thing. So I ran a lot at the time, weight trained, and I ended up going to boot camp. And, because like I actually finally like put in all that effort and I was like all in on something, I ended up the honor graduate of like my class in boot camp. And then I kind of like went forward, and I legitimately like take that with me for the rest of my, or like I take that like now, like as like a student, TCU as an engineering student, like that's how I am, I'm all in on everything. I give all my effort, to school. And then at the same time, now I'm, weightlifting full time as well. I think like looking back, like that moment that I like decided to join the Marine Corps, like that was like the first time in my life that I was like, I'm going to be all in on this. And ever since then, like everything that I do, I'm like all in on, like no matter what it is, like I'm married. So it's like, I'm like all in on being a husband, like seriously, and like I have like a dog, I'm always like hanging out with him and playing with him, making sure he's, healthy and happy. And that was pretty much it right there. That's like what like changed my life, I think, and kind of led me to where I am now.
Yeah, Kevin and Nikki are totally couple goals, power couple. So you literally have to follow them on Instagram. But it's crazy how, in the grand scheme of things, something little like a suspension from school or whatever that decision was can have such a huge impact. So that's super cool, kind of in and of itself, which only comes kind of with reflection and everything like that. But I can totally relate. I graduated high school the same height I am now, but I was like 165, and then now I'm like 210. But Kevin is built like a house. Like if you saw this dude like walking down the street, you'd like definitely move away. Super nice guy, but just like watching him throw around weight in the TC weight room is a treat for sure. And one of my favorite things is how humble Kevin is. And I'll try to like hype him up. I'll try to hype him up in the weight room and be like, dude, that is a ton of weight. He's like, dude, I'm definitely not that strong. I'm like, yeah, you are. And I'm like, try not to like, make you mad or anything. But I've definitely enjoyed kind of just watching from a distance, and it was cool kind of hearing how, I guess, a simple kind of upbringing and your own kind of trials and tribulations has led you to the Marines and everything. And not to be kind of cliche, but if you had to summarize what the Marines was and what it wasn't, kind of just briefly, and because obviously not everyone's a Marine and it's a unique experience in and of itself, but not to turn it into that podcast, but just kind of what it was, what it wasn't, and just kind of like a brief summary.
I'd say like what it was. So like I was in the infantry, so it's like I kind of had the job that. Well, all right. Let me start off by saying this. Most people that like from the outside looking in, like I think like a lot of times like view Marines as like every Marine is like the guy like with his gun fighting kind of thing. And realistically, that's not how it is. Like it's just like any other job. There's people that do administration in the Marine Corps. There's people that fix planes. There's people that do all that kind of stuff. But what it was to me is like I actually I joined specifically to like be in the infantry. Like I wanted to be that guy. So I spent like the whole time trying to just be like a better infantryman. What it was is it was literally like life changing. Like I said, like I had like no drive growing up. I mean, I said, I was pretty naturally gifted athlete. I was able to pick up anything, but I just like I never had like that effort. Like I never had like the drive to do anything, and that was like what it did. It changed everything. Like it now, like it's like a 180, with my life. And obviously, it's not gonna happen, but I wish like everyone could kind of experience something like that to like understand like that, like kind of like that wake up call in your life. Like other people get it through other ways. Like especially athletes, like a lot of athletes that play sports like their whole entire lives, they understand that drive, the commitment, the camaraderie kind of thing. But I never bought in on that, growing up. So I'm lucky to have had that. I was lucky to experience that after high school and experience it for 5 years. What it was not is it wasn't fun. It was definitely not fun. There was like definitely worth it, and it changed me and all that jazz. But 5 years ago, a couple years in the Marine Corps, I was definitely not thinking that anything was worth it. Like I was miserable, and it was everywhere we went, it was either like I was either super hot or I was super cold. Like I was wet and tired. What it was not is it definitely, it was everything that I thought it was going to be, but it was everything that I didn't think it was going to be at the same time. Like it was fun, but it definitely was not fun.
Yeah, and one thing I say is that, or I recently started saying, just to, reflecting on kind of everything that's happened with this COVID and stuff, is stuff doesn't really happen, or you don't really progress or change unless it's out of necessity. Like for me, sports science, I got to TCU and I actually thought about leaving like a month into it because I was like, I hate data, I hate research, like just sitting and reading these papers, like I just want to coach athletes, And then just like getting into working with teams. I worked with the baseball team and the football team my first semester, and I realized how applied it could be. So then like that's how I got into sports science. And then like how I developed my skills is my boss left in February and I started with the team in January, and our season started in February, and I literally had to basically teach and do everything myself, So it's one of those things where it's not sink or swim, but basically like sink or swim, like you just got to figure it out. And it's definitely tough, like wanting to have some sort of change, whether you know what it is or you don't know what it is, but it's only going to come kind of when it has to, if that makes sense. But just trust in the process that it will. But yeah, it's really, really cool story. So I guess that'll bring us to Olympic weightlifting now. Just want to touch on that a little bit before we get into the main questions. But so could you talk a little bit about what it's like training for a relatively monotonous sport? You snatch it, you clean it, you jerk it. Like that's it. So what's it like to be training for a sport that's very monotonous, like I said, and then also just what it takes to kind of be an Olympic weightlifter with it being a sport that's not as popular?
That's funny because anytime, we've probably talked about it, and like a lot of people talk about it, like inside the little realm of the weightlifting world, it's like super cool to us, but like when you turn on like the Olympics, it's not even like a popular sport in the Olympics. Like to me, it's like even like, looking back, like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, I loved the Olympics growing up. Like I watched, track and field, swimming. I love the Summer Olympics. Like almost everyone does, but no one actually cares about like weightlifting. Like no one watches it. Something that's probably like stopped that is like American weightlifting they've had some top dogs and stuff, but the sport itself in America, like up until maybe, 8 to 10 years ago, really wasn't like very popular. Like I personally did not grow up knowing anything about weightlifting. And that's why when you talk to most people, when you say that you weightlift, even if you say, well, you usually say, I weightlift, and then they think you're talking about either bodybuilding or powerlifting or something like that. And then you say, no, I Olympic weightlift. And then they're like, oh, so you were in the Olympics. And it's like, no, I was not in the Olympics, so it's like, no one actually like understands, what the sport is. But yes, it is, in that sense. Yeah. From the outside looking in, the sport could be boring. From the inside though, like it's awesome. Like, it's pretty much like my life, like it's like everything. And, you could be a curler, to me and you, it's like this a really dumb sport, to me, like I'm not gonna watch curling, but to like a curler, like that's their life, like they train every day, they work out for that, so that's how I have to look at it. Like you have to look at it like a job that you love. There's days like training today, training today was like really hard. I'm like just starting a new cycle for the summer. It's hot and there's a lot of volume, so there's a lot of repetition. There's pretty beat up, it's tough to recover, and you need to find the joy in it by looking at like the future. So like what you're doing it for, competitive or not, like whether you're, kind of like a top athlete or not, like you have to always kind of like see some type of end goal. Like, what do you want from this? Whether it's a meet in 3 months, whether it's hitting a new PR or something like that, you always have to like find goals. Just like anything else, like with your job, with your family, whatever it is, like most people that have success are getting by like crushing goals. You set a goal, as cliche as it is, you set a goal, you hit that goal, then you set an even bigger goal. So like as monotonous as it is, yeah, I guess, yeah, from the outside looking in, it looks like we do the same thing every day. But just like anything else, I don't see that. Like I don't see that I do the same thing every day. I think it's because like some days you feel like crap and some days you feel really good. Some days you can't hit the numbers that you thought you were going to be able to hit, and some days you surprise yourself and you're stronger than ever. So like every day is kind of different. And I guess like, yeah, I would just say like from the outside looking in, it's definitely boring. I get where people are coming from when they see the sport, but it's really not, I guess it's really, really not. And to me, it's super cool. Like, it's unfortunately people don't understand, this is kind of weird, but unfortunately people don't understand kilograms either. So like before I started weightlifting, I've never lifted in kilograms. We're living in America, so like we don't lift in kilograms, we lift in pounds, so like for instance, I don't know if you just saw like Thor, he deadlifted like 501 kilograms. So like I know someone that kind of went on a rant on social media talking about how upset they were with ESPN because they weren't doing a really good job at explaining like really how much weight that was. Like they weren't really getting people to understand. Like, yeah, you see 500 kilograms and this big guy lifting it, but it's not 501 like I don't know like why, but I think it's just, the American notion that it's more like 500 pounds, but it's not. It was like 1,100 pounds, like it's like half a ton. So it's like, it's so much more weight than people realize. So like to us, like it's so funny, like, like again, you do it, you understand what I'm saying, but like to a lot of people, I don't think they like really have a firm understanding or grasp as to like how much weight people are actually lifting, male and female. Like, I my wife lifts, and it's like she'll come to the TCU gym, and I don't know what other girls are looking at, but like I feel like maybe when guys look at her, like, they don't realize like how much weight she's actually lifting over her head. It's like unbelievable for me to see it. But I think to other people, they're like, oh, it doesn't like look like that much. But when you actually try it, and you not even if you get the technique down, when you actually try to weightlift, it's so hard. Like it's still, to me, it's still to the best weightlifters everywhere. It's still so hard. There's so much to it. To lead back to like the beginning of that, that's why I think like you get through training. It's just like it's still hard for everyone. Like everyone's always like working on something. There's no one in the sport of weightlifting that's ever like went into training and did the same thing every day because like they're a robot and they're able to like purposely lift the weight over their head. Like every single thing, especially on like a lift like the snatch, like every single thing means everything. If you are a little late, or if you're a little too quick, or if you're a little too mobile, like literally like anything can mess the lift up. It's so technical. So yeah, like you have to work on something every day, no matter what.
So going back to kind of what I said, how stuff only happens kind of out of necessity. I don't know if necessity is the right word, but I got my USAW the summer before I got to TCU, my level 1. And I needed a new hobby because I just graduated from baseball. So I was just feeling kind of empty. And I was like, I don't feel like a good coach. Like I have the cert, So I went and I did it and I went, all in. That's the only reason I can like fully appreciate like what you do. And I think it's super interesting within sports performance that like you Olympic weightlifter around the world, because I'm obviously like a super casual Olympic weightlifter, but I get it. I can speak that language, which I think is super important. And the takeaway message from that would be like, if you want to get it, you have to go do it. And like how much of a like whole new world, like literally whether it was beach volleyball, Olympic weightlifting, or whatever, my experiences have been, like literally a whole new world that you wouldn't not even just like understand, but appreciate and respect. Like what people are doing relative to their body weight, because it's a weight class sport, like is nuts, and just like with the kilos, like I don't even understand that well, but like I know it's times 2.2, it's not rocket science. Just like just to appreciate how much weight that is, so very cool. And then last little side story. So if you could talk a little bit about your meet in Italy, obviously like going to Europe for a competition and you have to fund yourself going there. But also if you could kind of just describe like what the back room is like.
Yeah.
So, like for an Olympic weightlifting meet, because you're warming up with literally all of your competitors right there. And then like you walk out onto this big stage, this, huge audience, and it's literally just you, this like square wood on the floor, and like this bar that you have to put over your head somehow, So if you could talk about kind of like the meet as a whole and kind of how it came together, how you got there, but then also just like the experience of like the actual competition with the back room and then like the platform.
Okay, yeah. So I guess to like touch what you just said about, I guess, like it's scary. Like what you just said, if there's a bar in the middle of this square platform and you're the only person doing anything, like everyone's quiet, there's no music, there's nothing, and it's just like you and the bar and everyone watching you. I'd be like lying to you if I told you that I am like not nervous. I am and I think like most weightlifters, even the best in the world, like there's still somewhat of nerves, because like I think I wouldn't say everyone, but most people grew up playing team sports their whole entire lives. Like I know that there's people out there that, the gymnastics and swimming and, things like that. But like me, like when I grew up, everyone else in my school grew up, most people grew up playing team sports. So like, even in baseball, like, yeah, it's individual in a sense. But like if you strike out and then the next guy behind you strikes out, it's not that bad. You know what I mean? Like it's like when it's not as bad. So like this is like the first time that I've ever had like that much of like an individualized kind of sport. And that's like something that I think like for most people, like even now, like that like first lift is the scariest lift. Like your first out of your 6 attempts, it's like the scariest lift. And when you hit it or miss it, whatever it is, there's like this crazy feeling that goes through your body. Like you're good. Like even if you miss it, like you're still like, this feels so much better. I went out there, I did my first attempt. It's done. It's not so scary, kind of thing. But the back room, I think, is something that I've talked to multiple people about this. I think most people, if you want to make like weightlifting popular, I think you got to see the back room. Like it's crazy. Like it's especially like in an international meet, like it's crazy. Like because there's a language barrier. There's a lot of like experienced coaches going around trying to make jumps. It's kind of hard. I guess I'd have to make like a really long explanation to explain that. It's more than just like going out there and like hitting these lifts. Like there's also like there's tricks and there's like a numbers game to it. And, in order to beat your opponent, you need to take advantage of someone, making or missing a lift, whether you're going to take a 1 kilo jump on your next attempt or take 2 kilos or, there's all these different things that come into it. So it's, I didn't experience it as like an athlete. I don't experience it like a coach does. I kind of just sit there, I guess, to backtrack and kind of explain what I'm actually trying to say here, that it's to people that don't actually know what I'm talking about with the back room. Behind the platform where the people or where the lifters go out and take their 6 lifts, you got to warm up. So there's like a, depending on how many meet or how many athletes there are for most meets, there's enough platforms in the back for there to be like 1 to 2 weightlifters warming up on those platforms. We all have our own weight, we all have our own bar. And you got to warm up. There's a game to it. So like if I have 30 minutes until I go out and take my first attempt, there's a number game to it. So, you got to warm up so that you're ready to go right when your numbers, like right when that lift is ready to go, you got to be ready to go. Like you can't, if you're a little too early or a little too late, like that can screw everything up. So like from a, that's like more of like a coaching kind of thing. As an athlete, I just sit there with a towel and they load everything. So you just kind of like sit there. My wife, other than the meet in San Marino, my wife's been like in the back of like every single one of my meets, helping load. And she's there to kind of, support me when like my coach isn't around. But that's the kind of stuff that I wish people can see. Like, I wish like there was like this little camera that showed on TV, like the back room way more. Like, I wish there was like a whole separate part of because it'd be kind of like a show almost, like there's a lot of people yelling. And there's a lot of, there's, like I said, there's a language barrier. So, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty high stress scenario. With a good coach, they try to de-stress you, like they don't let you worry about anything. They keep saying, like, I got it, like, don't worry. Like, just take this lift when I say to take this lift, take this warm-up attempt when I tell you to do it. And then when you're ready to go, they tell you, let's go. Like you go out on the platform and go lift, and then you come back and you wait back there until you go again. So, like I said, like a good coach kind of zones you out and doesn't allow you to feel the stress that the coaches feel. I couldn't imagine. I've never like coached at a meet like that. Like I've like kind of done a little bit like at a local meet, but like at a bigger meet when there's like all these like really good coaches around, there's a lot of intimidating coaches around. Like you really got to hold your own, like in those high stress scenarios. So one day I want to do it, but man, it's a stressful time back there.
Yeah, and just going back to like you have to go do like I've been to one Olympic weightlifting meet. It was a super cash one. It was at a CrossFit box, but just like knowing that the weight room is a thing and seeing kind of how that goes on. But just let's say we're starting at 100 kilos, right? The people that list 100 on their their sheet, they go, and the people that list 101, then they go. So if you have a big jump in your first and second or third attempts, like you could be sitting for 10, 20 minutes,
Yeah.
or if you make like a 1 kilo jump, you get 2 minutes in between, so it's just like a whole science in and of itself that like you only know just by experiencing it. So
yeah, no, there's like a huge, like I know exactly what you're talking about. There's like I've dealt with it. Like plenty of people deal with it. There's like this weird like number where like in my meet, for instance, there's like when nationals last year, for instance, there's 15 lifters in the session. There's like 3 or 4 lifters that have like a lower total. There's 3 or 4 lifters that have a really high total. And then there's like, 10 lifters that are right in the middle that pretty much lift the same amount of weight. So like if you open at snatch at 140 kilograms, and then your next lift is at 145 kilograms, you could literally have, all of those 10 lifters taking, and if they don't make it, they go on a 2-minute clock and they have to go again. So you literally could be sitting back there for 20 minutes. So, I mean, that's like something that a lot of people don't see too, is like when you have like a 20-minute gap or something like that, typically you're going to be in the back, maybe taking like a pull, doing like a power snatch, like something light to kind of keep your body moving, because like, it's not just weightlifting. Like anyone who's ever felt like an adrenaline rush before, when your adrenaline rush goes away, you don't want to do anything. So like when you have, that rush going, like when I'm in the back, like I personally don't love like taking pulls or powers in the back. Like I try to just like do air squats and like move around and stuff, but it's really more of like a mental game. Like you can't let yourself lose that adrenaline rush. Like you have to make it last as long as possible. Typically it goes away like right at the end. Like it always kind of works out to where like you take your last lift and then you just like, you want to go lay down immediately. Like it's this weird feeling. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it. Like anyone that's like done anything like like when you're just like, I don't know, like it's just, it's nuts, So losing, like you really have to focus on that. And if you got 20 minutes, in between lifts, it's really, really easy for you to even just take a minute just to think about something else. As soon as you think about anything else, I mean, you're out of it. Like seriously, You're like out,
What's your max PR or lifetime PR for your snatch and clean and jerk in kilos? And we'll let the listener convert it.
My best snatch is 155 kilograms, and then my best clean and jerk is 193 kilograms.
Okay, so multiply that by 2.2, and then you can figure it out. So, so the meet in San Marino, Italy, how did that kind of come to be, and what was that like, funding yourself and kind of just that whole, basically like managing yourself alongside with your coach, but just, kind of doing it on your own?
Yeah, so pretty much like for like international meets, now things kind of changed. Now like for international meets, there's like a gold standard, there's a silver standard, and there's a bronze standard meet. Bronze is I didn't go to a bronze, I went to a silver. Gold, to be like more clear. Gold is like senior world championships or like senior Pan American championships. It's like pretty much the cream of the crop. Like that's like the best lifters in the world. There's like, 8 lifters from our country that go. There's 8 male, 8 females that go. Silver is like, it really got created for lifters that are trying to qualify for the Olympics to go and lift at an international meet, and they basically get like a bonus on their points to qualify for the Olympics. I'm not really going to get into like that qualification because honestly, I don't even know if the people going to the Olympics firmly understand like the whole point system to get to the Olympics. They just kind of like go and lift like their coach says to do. I went to a silver level meet, and what that means is that you have to qualify like at a national meet in the United States or a national meet in your home country, wherever you may live. And then you need to hit like a certain total. So I had like a certain total that I needed to hit minimum in order to be chosen, to make it, to be able to go to this meet. So that was at Senior Nationals last year in Memphis, Tennessee. That was last May, and that was a crazy meet because I had like an incredible training cycle leading up to it from basically January until April. Everything was pretty much perfect. Like that was like the first time I think in like my weightlifting career that like I didn't have any nagging injury. I wasn't hurt. Like I was pretty healthy. Like generally I was able to go in every day and train to the best of my ability. So like I knew that like going into nationals last year that I did have the ability to qualify for this meet, and I did have the ability to like medal. But the thing with weightlifting, and that's like what's so cool about it, is like it doesn't really like that only like matters like so much. Like you could have the best training cycle in the world, but if you get 30 minutes less of sleep than you typically get, and you wake up feeling a little tired, and then you don't feel perfect, and you go out there and miss one lift, it's all over. So it's like even the best lifters like in the world still have to go out there and do what everyone else does. You still have to go out there and hit 3 snatches and 3 clean and jerks, or at least hit one of each, to have a total. So, it's weird going into a meet like that because everyone knows that even though you have to have the confidence obviously, but everyone still kind of has that like notion in the back of their head, like there is like luck involved to it. Like I need to do really well, and then I might need someone to miss a lift. And that's what's weird. I was just talking to someone about this. That's what's weird is like in weightlifting, you really don't want to, but you kind of have to wish that someone misses, like you don't want to wish for the worst for someone. You don't want them to get hurt or anything like that, but you do. You're competing against people, and as friendly as you may be with the people that you're competing with, it's a competition. So like, you're sitting there rooting against them, because you have to make your lifts, and then you have to sometimes wait and see if they make their lifts, and that was kind of how it went at nationals. Is I was my second clean and jerk in the competition. I opened up pretty high because my training was going well, but my second clean and jerk I missed. And it was pretty much like, I knew I can hit it. Like I went out there and I had to go again, and I knew I can hit it. But I also did know that like, because I missed this lift, there's a very, very good chance that, I'm not going to medal, or my total is not even going to be in the top, 5 because I missed this lift. But the reason weightlifting is cool is because I went out there and I hit my third attempt. And then there was, I think like 4 other lifters that had to go out and basically hit 1 kilogram or 2 kilograms higher than me. And they all missed. So I ended up getting my medal. Like I ended up, taking third at nationals last year. I got the qualifying total I needed to get first. That was the most important thing. That was what I went there for. And then I hit my lift, and then I was done. Like I said, like my adrenaline was gone. I was kind of just chilling. And then my buddy came up and said, hey, you might get a medal if this guy missed. So I didn't want to get my hopes up. So I just kind of like didn't watch. And I was like, I'm not going to get my hopes up because like, this would be my first time medaling, at a big meet like this. So I don't want to get my hopes up. I stopped watching, and then like, maybe like 2 minutes later, he came by and was like, no, you definitely got a medal in clean and jerk. Now you might get one in total. So that was like, my stomach started hurting, and I was like, oh my God, this like might actually be real. And to go back to like what's behind in the back room, there's also a TV that's in the back room so that the coaches can all watch like what's going on the platform. And then there's a scoreboard that basically shows like who's making what and who's missing what. So I ended up actually watching the lifting going on. And that was where I was kind of like, I like this guy, he's a nice guy and all, but I want him to miss, like I'm sitting there, like, I feel like I haven't, unless I'm like rooting against like, someone playing the Cardinals in baseball, like I feel like I'm not usually like just seriously rooting against someone, especially in an individualized sport, like really rooting against someone. So that's where I found myself, and, the person missed, and I ended up getting like second in clean and jerk. And then I took third overall. So that was probably like probably the coolest like day of my life. Was like medaling for the first time. And, you know, I had some family there. My wife was there, obviously, in the back. It was super cool, like seeing like all like the hard work. Because like I said, there is luck, but, you know, I did have like such a good training cycle, and I was able to go in there and put my head down and grind like for, you know, 4 months straight. And kind of like panned out, worked out. So it was sick.
Yeah, cool. And we've definitely covered a lot of stuff. So if there's anything you prepared for these next 3 questions, we definitely don't have to go over another story. But so the coolest story you have thus far.
Yeah, I mean that's probably like like what I was just saying is probably my coolest story so far. Like that's like I mean you're speaking more about weightlifting, right? Because that's probably honestly it's probably the coolest story like in my life, because I feel like I've had success in like other things, but like I don't think I've ever like dedicated so much to like one thing, like, you know, sport wise, or when I was in the Marine Corps or something like that. I'd never dedicate, like when it comes to like the dedication, it's like so much more than like weightlifting. You know, there's like the nutrition aspect, there's the recovery aspect, there's like the mental aspect. I think like what most people see is just us lifting, but it's not the same as like any, you know, just like going to the gym and benching and doing, you know, random stuff at the gym. Like there's such a big mental part of it. Like for instance, like I can't, like if I'm stressed or if I'm like not there mentally and I'm like not having a good day, I can't like go into the gym and train and have a good training session, because there's so much mental in the sport. Like you can't go in with like a, you know, a bad mindset. You have to go in there with like, you know, every like, you know, bit of intent. You know, like I said, you know, you really got to be all in on your training. So it's like if you have like anything going on that's like not perfect, it can affect everything. So kind of what I said, you know, if you miss 30 minutes of sleep, you know, if you didn't eat, if you skip a meal, you know, if you do like all these different things, that'll change the consistency that you had for months. You know, like it's crazy. And like you wouldn't really believe it, but I swear, like, if everything's going perfect for like 2 months and then one day you decide to like change things and like have a different meal or have this like, you know, pizza or like have, I don't know, go have a few beers or something like that, like everything changes. Like it changes for like a week. Like it's not like you know, you have a one bad training session, it all kind of goes downhill from there. So that's why it's like, you know, it's crazy mental. You have to be able to like have a bad training session and put it behind you. And so like that's kind of why to me like that was like the coolest day of my life, was just because like it was really just really cool to see all that hard work, all the times that like, you know, you didn't want to go to sleep and you wanted to stay up and play video games, or all the times that you just didn't feel like getting on the floor and stretching at night, you know, like all those different times, like it really did like all pay off. I mean, like I know it's like kind of like cliche, but like, you know, the hard work like really does pay off. I think like aside from, you know, like genetics and things like that, like I really think like anyone can do it. Like, you know, you just like, and I think anyone can do anything, you know, like it's just the hard work is really what pays off no matter what you're doing. And, you know, obviously if you're in a more specific sport, you know, you can really like hone in on certain things, but I'm sure you've seen like, there's plenty of athletes out there that probably had an incredible amount of talent, but never like put in the work, you know, and they never ended up being like what they wanted to be, you know. And that's kind of where, you know, like I was saying, like when I was in high school, I was one of those athletes. I felt like I was pretty athletic, you know. I was in, you know, 7th and 8th grade, I was like starting on the football team and stuff like that. And then I like got to high school and like I started hanging out with my friends and like, and which is cool and all, you know, but I would still say like, I'm going to do this and that. And I wouldn't put in the work to actually do it. So like, it's, you know, that's, you just gotta be, you gotta be a doer. Like, that's like kind of how it is with the sport. Like you can say all you want, but you, at the end of the day, like have to really, really put in the effort and the hard work to get there.
That's just a testament to being able to stick to that for that long, to see those results come to real life. And it's funny you mentioned that, because whether it's saying no to video games or whatever it may be, or like getting on the floor and stretching. And that's what I was like, I'm going to fix my ankles during this quarantine. I stretched for like the first 2 weeks maybe, and I haven't stretched since. So it definitely takes a specific type of person to be into everything that comes with weightlifting. Like I said, a more monotonous sport from the outside, you know, but also that type of person that has that all-in mindset, or has that, I'm going to do it because I don't know what day, but I know one day, you know, it'll all come together. So I can only imagine what that must have felt like. So yeah, super cool. And I feel like it might be the Marine story, but what's the most fundamental that's led you to now?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's probably, definitely like the Marine Corps. That was like, you know, it's kind of weird saying that because the Marine Corps has like absolutely nothing to do with weightlifting whatsoever, like in a physical standpoint, you know, like I never weightlifted in the Marine Corps, but it's like, you know, the mental side of things. Like sounds again kind of cliche, but I kind of learned how to be a man, you know, and I learned how to like, you know, kind of be tough. And I'm not saying like, you know, in weightlifting just suck up pain and stuff like that, but I think I do I did learn the ability to kind of like be able to put things behind me, you know, like when you're training and things get tough, like I do have the ability, you know, to just forget about it, you know, and just focus on whatever I'm doing, you know, and not think about like the pain that I'm in, or like, you know, whether it sounds bad, but whether I'm like injured or not injured, you know, because you don't want to push through an injury. But, you know, I think, you know, we both know that there's times in someone's like, you know, athletic career when you do need to push through an injury. I mean, yeah, you could argue that it's not good for you and stuff like that, but, you know, if you're like pitching in the World Series and, you know, and it's game 7 and the game's on the line and your elbow hurts really bad, but you can still pitch, you're still going to pitch, you know, whether you have to have Tommy John at the end of the season, you know, you're going to do it. You know, that's just like kind of, you know, that's how it's got to go. So I think like, you know, that's where I kind of learned that like mentality, like the ability to just kind of like put everything aside and focus on like whatever is in front of me. And it's just because I ended up being a squad leader, like the last year and a half, 2 years I was a squad leader. That's like kind of where you learn that importance, you know, like I was like in charge of, you know, 12 other guys. And that's like, you know, your life really means nothing. Like your pain means nothing. It's them that matter, you know, like it's their lives and like their families that like matter. So like you can't, you know, fall behind on a hike. You can't, you know, fall behind on a run. Like you need to be in front of them. You need to be leading them. You need to be showing them like, you know, how to push through things like I got pushed through. I mean, luckily I had some pretty good leadership, you know, in front of me that led me, that taught me how to do that. But, you know, it's kind of where I learned that like mentality. Like it's your life, you know, it sounds weird, but you know, your life is like meaningless compared to those guys. You know, their lives are always in front of you no matter what. So, you know, anytime I was hurting, anytime I didn't want to, I don't know, anytime I wanted to go to sleep or something like that, like I would stay up if I had to. I would, you know, let them sleep and I would stay awake, you know, things like that. Like that's like where I learned like that. Well, if you just have like that one goal, like you need to do everything, you know, to like, you know, accomplish that goal.
And going back to kind of what I said about learning that stuff kind of out of necessity, you know, and that experience, although it doesn't, like you said, it's not directly related to weightlifting or mechanical engineering, but there's so much value in literally everything you do if you seek that out or if you actively reflect and kind of figure it out. One of my favorite conversations I've had with the USC sports scientist, he was on 2 or 3 episodes ago. He gets a lot of his concepts from like finance and the stock market. You know, like the stock market acts a lot like the human body in a training model.
I never thought about that. That makes a lot of sense though.
You can get so dogmatic, and if you go to the same people for the same problems every time, you're always going to get the same results, right? If you get the same people that are always in the same field, they're going to be thinking about the same problems the same way you are, right? And they've been attacking it the same way you have been. So I'm not saying like do a whole 180, you know, like training for Marines, training for sports. It's like similar-ish enough, you know, but if you can make that connection, if you can figure it out, if you can stick through something long enough, you know, I would assume not every moment of your Marine experience you wanted to be there, but
yeah.
If you can put it all together, right, there's definitely I like to say everything in life, or, you know, people for that matter, is a lot more similar than dissimilar. So being able to find the value in everything is a skill in and of itself, and it's a gift in and of itself as well.
Oh, I like that.
It's been cool to bring everything together just with all this downtime, you know, sacrificing, keeping me up at 2 a.m, but you know, this is what I realized. So last big question, the story you're most proud of thus far.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of going to come down to, again, like kind of like an athletic thing. I don't know. It's kind of sounds weird, but I'm going to kind of like put together like serving for the United States and like representing the United States. I think that was like kind of like the coolest thing. You know, again, I wasn't competing in the Olympics or anything like that, but you know, and I think like most weightlifters' dream, most competitive weightlifters, like it might be quiet, but I think their end goal is to be an Olympian. Like I think like anyone that actually does any Olympic sport that's competitive, and especially if you're going to compete at any international level whatsoever, I think like everyone kind of secretly has that goal. I know it's like, it's so crazy to actually go to the Olympics that no one actually wants to voice that. Like I don't voice that. Most people that you talk to and you say like, what's your goal? They're not going to say I'm going to go to the Olympics because they might be 8 years away, you know? So it's like, it's really hard to say that, but you know, to most weightlifters, like sounds cheesy, but like wearing like the USA singlet is like the you know, the coolest thing. Like that was like wearing that singlet was like so cool. You know, like everyone you look up to, it's not just like weightlifting. It's like any sport where you're wearing anything with the USA and you're competing against other countries. It's you know, it's just like a different feeling, you know? I mean, like, I love the United States. Like I love our country, and I love that you know, I was in the Marine Corps and stuff like that, but I love that I had the ability to represent our country, because like, whether I didn't win, whether I'm not the best weightlifter, it's still like cool to like represent the United States, why wouldn't anyone want to represent our country? I mean, it's just, I don't know. I just, sounds corny, but I'm pretty patriotic. So it's pretty cool to go over there and wear the USA singlet and, see the other, actually, and meeting other people from other countries and stuff, I mean, that was pretty crazy. I learned a lot over there. I mean, people are way different over there, it's a different world. I mean, obviously outside of weightlifting, I've been to like a bunch of other countries and stuff. And I've learned, through, different cultures and stuff, like how different everything is. But it's cool, like seeing like how everyone appreciates what they have, like everyone, to me, like I love like having the ability to like have like social media and things like that. And like, live in a country where really we're so free, we can like do, kind of anything we want. But then you look at other countries where, things are different. They don't have as much freedom, or they don't have the ability to do these other things, but they're still appreciative of what they have. Like they're still weightlifting just like, anyone else, and they do their best with what they have. So it was kind of cool to like go over there and see that and like meet other coaches, meet other lifters in other countries and whatnot. And, kind of like see that love, it's kind of like, math, like everyone speaks the same language in math. And that's kind of how it is with like weightlifting, like we're all doing the same thing, like whether you live in another country or not, you're still going in there and, squatting and pulling and, doing the same two monotonous, boring lifts that, that we do. So it was super cool to see that and see everyone's like, not just mine, but everyone else's work kind of pay off,
America.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I was trying to say.
But going back to kind of what I said, not to backtrack, but you only appreciate how awesome America is by going to those other countries and going.
Yeah. I know. I always say that. I mean, I've been to plenty of places where I would say like, I love it here. Like after leaving, I went to Italy, but it's like, I still love being here like more. And I think it's just probably because, I'm used to everything here, obviously. And I love my own bed, but just even like everything, I'm just so used to like having really anything I want. I'm not saying like financial, that side of things. I'm just saying like, I guess like the freedom aspect and just like the ability to kind of, do whatever I want really with, to a certain extent.
I couldn't have said it better myself. USA, go USA, and just being able to represent in two different aspects, right? And how it is a lot more similar than you definitely would think. So yeah, I like how you brought that all together. So what's 1 to 3 things that the listener can do tomorrow, actionable things to become better?
I'd say like something that I like to live by, and it's something that I've actually had to like really focus on over the last like, even like this today in training and the last week in training, getting back to training is getting back to like the habit of like just doing everything with intent. Like kind of what I was talking about in the earlier part of the podcast, like whatever you're doing, like whatever, like whether it's like, like I said, like being a husband or like, being a dog dad, like things like that. Like you really just got to do everything with intent. Like no one, I mean, it sounds weird, but it's like laziness is like unattractive. Like whether, like in a relationship or like as an athlete, whatever it is, like laziness is just unattractive. Like you could be the best athlete in the world, but if you're lazy, like everyone knows that like laziness doesn't get you anywhere, so like being able to like put on or, I kind of always say like just being all in on everything you do. Like, being a student, being, an athlete, being anything, like just like whatever you do, like when you wake up, like just do it, to the best of your ability. So you can go to sleep at night knowing, I did do everything to the best of my ability.
Yeah. And if I had to put that into kind of like steps, it would be like, so let's say your training session, right? Start with the training session and go backwards. All right. So if I'm waking up at this time, I got to go to bed at this time. So it's being intentional about going to bed, right? Mm-hmm. Then you have to know what to eat the night before. You have to be intentional about what to eat in the morning. You have to be intentional about your warm-up. Tia Claire Toomey, fittest woman on earth for however many zillion years she's won it. She was like, I mean, I'm sure she's not the first person to say it, but you have to be intentional in how you warm up. Like you have to warm up like the fittest woman on earth. You have to cool down like the fittest dude on earth. You have to do literally everything. And they're like laziness is not going to get you anywhere, and it's definitely not attractive. So
no, it's not.
so being intentional and all in, and then like figuring out in your own aspect what you have to do so. Like I do not stretch. I probably should, but like getting me to go, you have to keep me out of the gym, know? So it's like, what can I do to set myself up for more success specific to what I know I struggle with? Right? Whether that's like writing down what you're good at, what you're not, just like sitting and reflecting, whatever it may be. So there's a lot of things that people can do, and it's definitely in a lot more control than they think. They just have to be intentional, actually go do it. So
That's funny. Like you said, the thing about like warming up, probably about like a year ago, I kind of found myself like when I would have like bad training sessions, I kind of like would look back to like why I had the bad training session. And it kind of like always ended up being like something about like my attitude or just like how hard I was like pushing myself in the other parts of training. So like, yeah, like warming up and things like that. So I started doing this thing where I would grab the bar from the rack and I'd put it on the ground and I would start warming up and whatnot. I'd, do my squats, like whatever it was. But then like I told myself that like when I do pick up the bar, an empty bar, that I'm going to pick it up like as hard as I possibly can and I'm going to lift it over my head. And like it sounds like silly, but it helped me treat the bar like a toy. Like it literally like made the bar feel so light. And it was because I had like the attitude of like going in, like picking up that bar and like, owning the bar and putting it over my head. And I look back and, like I think about times that I would go to the gym and I'd feel like beat up in the middle of the week and stuff. And it really did start at that. Like I would go and I'd grab the bar like really slow and then I'd slowly warm up and I'd, warm up my shoulders with the bar on my chest and things like that. And it literally like changed everything. And it just like, that was like, I felt like maybe the one thing that I was missing. I was just like, I wasn't putting like that intent into, warming up or just in my attitude, like when I walked into the gym.
And if you're intentional at the start, like it can have such a cascade, positive or negative.
Yeah.
So it's really just a matter of taking that step as opposed to having it kind of all mapped out. Yeah.
I would say like the other thing, like I like live by this because and this actually goes more like towards school. It's that you not to multitask and to prioritize. So like I spent like a lot of, like I said, I kind of learned some of this in the Marine Corps, but like the Marine Corps and like going to TCU and studying engineering are like literally like night and day difference. Like there's like in the Marine Corps, I would, have to, do this and that on like limited amount of sleep. It was always like a physical kind of thing that I had to do, with school. It's like, I have to study for like these 3 exams this week. So I need to like map out like how I'm going to study for these exams and not like basically have my brain fried at the end of it. And last semester was like basically the time that I learned very quickly that multitasking like does not work very well. And I think like the difference is, I don't know if like many people like do this, but like I definitely used to multitask, and that's that I would take like one thing and I would do it at the same time as another thing. And what would end up happening is I would put like 40% of my focus in this thing and then 60% into the other thing. So instead I changed everything up and I decided to just do like one thing at a time. And it allowed me to just really put in like 100% of my focus and my time and my effort into one thing. And then I'd move on to the next thing. And like, you look at like I said earlier, like my grades last semester compared to this semester are legitimately like flip-flopped. And it's because I came into this semester, I decided to map everything out differently. I sat down and I said, as stressful as it may feel that I'm studying for this exam right now, but I have this other exam the next day, it'll like work out. And it really did. It all panned out, mapping everything out and being able to prioritize. I mean, really changed everything pretty much.
I totally have that same, like I'll literally do something for 10 minutes and then I'll like go do a different assignment or a different project. It's like, gosh, like, can I not just literally sit down for more than 10 minutes and work on something? But that starts just from being aware. Like I call them floaters, like people that just don't know anything about themselves, where they have been, where they want to be. So whether it's just like, I want to be a better student. Well, what do you not do good at? What do you think could be better at? So just being conscious, cognizant.
Yeah.
We'll go super long way. The actual steps, I think, will kind of just come with time. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then I think like having fun is probably the other thing, because like I think like with anything in the world, especially like kind of leading back to like what you were saying about like a monotonous sport. Luckily, like I have like an awesome wife. So like when I guess I'm gonna first start out by saying like when you do find things that like make you happy or like you have fun with, like just really like try to hold on to those things, because like when things in your other realms of your life like go bad, you're going to really need those things to like get by, like whether you have fun playing video games, or things like that, just keep like taking some part of your day and having fun, because like no matter what, anything can be monotonous, whether it's your work or your home life, like whatever it is, like things can get monotonous. And I think like if you at least have like one thing that you find that fun in, you can always turn to that that thing when things get rough.
Yeah, and when you have it, own it. Because there's a lot of things in life that are not fun, but
yeah, no, I know.
you have to go do an experiment and whatever it may be, and you'll figure it out. And that's one thing, like not everything in life is going to be as awesome as traveling around the world to Olympic weightlift. getting to make awesome podcasts with cool
Yeah.
people. but when you have those things, man, you just got to soak it up for sure.
You gotta. It might not always be there,
Yeah, gotta take advantage. So, where can the listeners get more of you? See you and Nikki be power couple of the eternity.
Yeah, I have Instagram. It's Kevin. It's my full name, Kevin Wiseman, and then the number 2. I don't post a crazy amount. I don't really have many followers either. Maybe I'll get some followers after this, but I do post some funny stories of my dog and me and my wife hanging out, and then I'll typically share my wife's weightlifting or powerlifting, whatever she's doing, because that's always fun to watch.
One of my favorite things I ever saw in the story was you about to catch a clean, and then it was the invisible mermaid man car.
Nikki made that.
Literally, I still laugh to this day about that. So, yeah, so it was super fun stuff. Well, thank you very much for your time. This has been awesome, and I've loved to just chat a little bit more in depth than just in between sets and stuff. So.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is a fun time, and thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Have a good one.
Thank you.